we've made a bar graph, and I've kind of talked about how I kind of play around with data just in TouchDesigner, how I figure out how to like visually represent this data using different techniques like color and size. And then let me show you what else I've made for this workshop. So this visual 4, I maybe just gonna explain what I did. So I thought, okay, maybe we can use something more interesting to visualize these categories. So I've used these icons to show which data is how much percent. And I just downloaded some free icon image from the web, and then composited on top of the boxes that we created earlier, just like in the bar graph, and then used an edge so we can actually see the outline of the icon. And trying this out, I feel like it's maybe not the best idea, since because of the icon, you can't really see the difference between 15 and 20% anymore. But yeah, those things are just gonna happen when you visualize data. You're just bound to run into problems like that, where you're like, oh, in my head, this was such a great idea, and then you actually try it and it's actually a little bit confusing, or maybe not as clear as you thought it would be. So yeah, I think it's really important to just try with data visualization, try again to figure out the best way to visualize your data. And this is always because it's always going to be different depending on what data you have, what data set you have, what categories you have, how many data points you have is always going to be different. So yeah. And then next I thought, okay, let's visualize this in 3D. So for this part, similar to the 2D visualizations using tops, I am calling the same data table all again with a select, and then I selected out just the normalized data by specifying in the select row by index, and then specifying the index of the row that I want to keep. And then I actually sorted it. So I sorted it by numbers. So columns by numbers. So we have our female, and then unknown, and then male, and then all in this range. So it's going from smallest to biggest amount. And then I used a .2 chop to transform this table into a channel. So we have our data points in channel and chop channel format, and you can specify the that you can specify if you're gonna output, for example, channel per row, or single channel, or channel per column. And so in this case, where our channel is per row, so one row, and then the first row is we can ignore because it's labels, and then the first column is the name of our channel, so normalized one. And then I put this into a null to instance. And then I've also used a pattern in RAM format to create, and created 4 points. Like I set the length to 4, so I can use this to space my cubes. And I merged both of these channels together into my instance null. And then I'm just using this box, and I'm using a transform to kind of scale down its size. And then I used the translate X cubes, this pattern. I called it cubes. I called this channel cubes. I used this channel to translate my box copies on the x-axis. So if I remove this, they will all be on one spot. But if I put this in here, they're evenly spaced apart like this. And then I changed the scale of these boxes, the Y scale, with my normalized 1 channel. So if I remove this, all my boxes will be the same height. But if I use this normalized 1 channel, my boxes will be different heights according to our data. And then I used a just a foam material, a very standard foam material, and a camera to render and a light. And then I also used a ramp to change the color of these boxes. So at first I just created a ramp, and I changed the resolution to width 4 and height 1. And if you click make this viewer active and then right click, you can display pixel values. And if you see, we will have 0, and the next pixel will be 0.250, and then 0.5, and then 0.75. So to actually use this instancing, these values need to be mapped from 0 to 4. So I'm using a math top, and I'm changing the range from 0 to 4, and then I just put a null and called this index. And then used the RGB value of this null to color my boxes. So if I remove this, they're just gray boxes, but if I put my color values in here, they're gonna be color labels, like I explained before why I choose these colors. And then I also created some 3D labels for these. So I'm using a rectangle. Let me show you this in the geometry viewer. Here's my boxes, and then maybe let's remove the text mat for a second. Yeah, these are my rectangles. They're just laying in front of these boxes. And I'm using texture instancing on them. So I created this, again, base to hold all my labels. with all my text in here. And from our original select, I selected out only the pure number values, and then sorted it just like I sorted the other one from smallest to biggest, and then use an in to get my table inside of this box. And then I created just multiple text labels, and I'm using again Python. So first of all, you can use so this time, instead of writing the text in here of my label, so female or male or unknown, I'm just using the name of my rows and columns. So you can use this stat parameter where I put this in one, and then you can change this information here with these that row and that col parameters. So I'm using this me.digits. So the digit of the operator name is going to be used. So it selects another column depending on what number is in this text top's name. So it first chooses female, then unknown, then male, and then all. And then I just edit behind that my text, my numbers. So again, I created the space like this, and then I wrote, I referenced my operator in one, and my row one, and then I used this again, me.digits, to reference the responding column. So if it's text one, it's going to be female, and the amount of female artists, and then text two, unknown, and the amount of unknown artists, and then male is going to be the same. So I don't have to like recode this text and change these numbers all the time. I just can copy more of these text stats, and then now we don't have any more data in our table. That's why there's an error, but you can see maybe that this increased to 5 because the text is text number 5, and then over here is going to be 6, and over here is going to be 7. So yeah, I created these textures, and then network editor. Oh yeah. And then on this GU2, I first instanced the translate X cubes. I use that to position them in the X position, and then I instanced these textures. So I'm telling it, look inside this base container label, and then look for the operator called text. And then I'm using pattern matching, so a star. So it calls all the textures from 1 to 4. And then I'm giving it an index of, which is again this ramp. And this is pretty much the same as I'm using for changing the color over here. I'm just using it in another context. So I'm using it this time to tell TouchDesigner which of these tags needs to be on which of these triangles. So if I don't have this, they're all just gonna use text number 1, female, female, female. So I need to tell it use text 1, text 2, text 3, text 4. So yeah, I'm using, like I explained earlier, the math tab to change my pixel values from 0 to 4, and just map my textures onto these rectangles. And then I'm using the same text to give this visual context, and just compositing it over after my render, and then this text as well down here. And then I'm just giving it a black background, and that's our final image, the snow. And the only thing is, when doing this, you will probably want to use the default projection on the camera is perspective, which you could use, but for me, when I use my camera in projection in perspective mode, I get these weird jagged lines down here. So usually what you use for these type of visualizations is orthographic mode, which I'm way zoomed in. But as you can see, when using orthographic mode, you maybe get weird shadows sometimes. I could change this so these shadows don't, I could like refigure this camera and the snow, and then these shadows probably won't be here. But even without these shadows, I feel like the orthographic camera makes these boxes look not that pretty. Like me personally, I don't like that it looks kind of curved. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but the visual over here looks kind of curved. So what I figured out trying when I made this is that there's this mode, perspective to ortho blend. So you can blend between perspective and the orthographic camera. And I feel like that worked best for me personally. Just blending it a little bit with the orthographic camera, so I don't get these jagged lines. Yeah. And then I also used another technique. Like I told you, you can use either instancing in TouchDesigner for creating data visualizations really easily, because this visual would be really heavy if you have to copy all of these boxes and change every label by hand, and it's gonna take a lot of time to create. So instancing is a really easy way to create multiple of these data points and change the data like really easily. And then the second way you can work with data is with the replicator. So what I did for this visual, I just created a container, and inside of this container is just a rectangle, which I made visible with the on the containers look page. There's a background top you can specify. I just made it visible here, and then I used the replicator to replicate these boxes according to my data. So usually what you mostly will probably see is people using a table with the replicator comp. But you can actually, there's actually two replication methods. One is by table, and then the other one is by number. So what I did is I again have my data here. So I again selected the row that I wanted. So I only wanted this percentage of 100 row. So all the other data I didn't need. So I selected that out while also calling the data from our data container. And then I used again a dat2 to turn all these data points into channels. And this time I'm not using the channel per row. I'm not creating one channel with multiple data points. I'm actually creating 4 channels with each one data point in them. So I select my output as channel per column, and the first row is just names. There's no value. It will just create the names for these channels. And then the first column is also labeled. So I said ignore first column. So now I have my table data, but this time in chop form. So I can just drag and drop these channels into my number of replicants and create as many boxes as I want according to this number of replicants. One thing I did is beforehand is I used a math chop to change these floating point numbers to whole numbers. And I used the round over here. There's this integer parameter. You can change, you can set it to ceiling, floor, or round. And I set it to round because if you just remove the floating point behind these, you will just get to 99%, because female is like 14.5. So if you just remove these points after that, we will just have 99% in total, but we want 100%, right? So I set this to round so that only the female one will round up to 15%. And then I'm using, and then I'm just creating first I just moved, I used this over here to tell it make 100 boxes. And then, why is there an error all of a sudden? Not really sure. There should not be an error. I didn't really change anything, but all right. And then, so now we have 100 of these containers with just a white box inside. And then I put all of this into another container. And I told my children on this children page that I want them to be aligned from left to right. And I said maximum per line is 10. So if I changed it, this is gonna change how these boxes are visualized. But yeah, I said 10. So it's 10 and 10. And I kind of changed the spacing a little bit, so it just looks more pretty. 2 minus 2. And then I did the same for not just my 100%, so all artists. I also did the same for my male artists, so 65%. So now we have 65 boxes over here. And then again, for our unknown, which I did again, purple boxes. And then last, our female, which is 15%. So we have 15 boxes. And then I put them inside another container, but this time on this container, I didn't tell it to align any of these. I just told it to cover each layer. So we have these white peeking out here at the bottom, and then the blue on top, and the purple peeking out a little bit over here, and then the pink for female. And then again, to give it context, because for all data visualization, pretty much context is what's most important, and so important so people can make sense of your data. I just use this up view operator to so we can visualize this container. We can use this container as a texture. And then I created a little bit bigger canvas than this original visual, composited it, and then again put like text, for example, percentage of artists, like female artist, male artist, unknown, and then a title, and then also the credit on the side, and then also some percentage on the side over here. So you could maybe make more sense of this visualization. Okay, here's 0%, here's 100%. Yeah, it's just another way I try to visualize this data. And just by trying that, I think the last two are kind of okay visualizations of of this data, which are kind of clearer to understand. And then maybe Visual 4 has kind of a little bit of design flaw because you can't really tell the difference between 50 and 20%. And then in visualization 3, that's okay, but it's a little bit boring. So just like this, I think it's most important to just try different types of things with your data, because like your data is always going to be different. You're always going to have a different amount of values, and you're always going to need to visually encode your data differently. So I feel just trying and experimenting is really important when creating data visualizations. And yeah, just explaining this, we already used nearly all of the time, but I think a lot of you are probably interested also in like spatial visualization. So let me maybe show you just one last visualization. So this time, I still used the artist data set, but actually this time I'm not looking at the sex of the artist, I'm looking at their nationality. And I combined it with another data set of longitude and latitude of the country. So I matched the nationality to the country, which doing this, I realized this thought was actually quite flawed, because just because you're maybe Chinese doesn't mean you live in China. Or because you're Korean doesn't mean you live in South Korea. You could be living in North Korea. So this visualization itself is a little bit flawed, but I just still wanted to show you how you could do a globe visualization like this. So we have our countries divided by nationality and country, like information. And then we have the number of artists that from that nationality in the MoMA like artist data set. So as you can see, there are a lot of Americans in MoMA's collection, and only very little maybe from Afghanistan or countries like other smaller countries like that, maybe not that well-known countries. And then some artists from maybe Austria, Brazil's also quite a few, Britain, Canada, Erica. And then, yeah, anyways, I, again, instance that data. So I'm just using these XYZ positions, and I'm using the number of so amount of people. And then I just created a circle, and I'm instancing these circles according to like these XYZ positions. And then I'm using, I did the same for label. So just like I created the label for the boxes, I created a label for these circles. But as you can see, Europe is really a lot of countries stuck together, so they kind of overlap. That's not Europe, but over there too. A lot of these points like overlap. So this visual is definitely not perfect. Maybe for another purpose, you could use a technique like this, but maybe not for showing where people come from around the country or around the globe. And then I also used just a sphere, and I mapped this texture, this acrylic rectangular texture of the globe on top of it. You could also make a 3D mesh that's a globe and match it, but I'm just doing it like this. And then I'm using render paths. So I have my globe, which is first being rendered, and then I render on top of it my points and my labels. The reason I'm doing it like this is because they're all at the same position essentially, or nearly at the same position. So if you just use one render, you might get like weird jagged lines around these spheres or labels. So to get away with that, I'm using a render path, and then I used some text again for context down here. But yeah, this visual was kind of, while making it, I realized, okay, my thought process behind this visual is a little bit flawed. So I didn't really completed it, but yeah. just so you know, you could create a globe visualization in a similar manner. And yeah, when you're using a globe that you're projecting on, you will need to change your longitude to Cartesian, so XYZ positions, and map it kind of to the size of your overall sphere. And then you also need to rotate these circles or rectangles to match the shape of your sphere. But other than that, it's pretty much same to the 3D boxes I showed you. It's pretty much the same workflow and the same concept with instancing. So yeah, I hope you maybe learned something new today with this workshop, and it wasn't too confusing. And yeah, I hope you got my message that no matter what data you're working with, it's always going to be different what kind of steps you need to take, how you're going to visually encode them, your data. And it's always important to just try, because you're not going to make a perfect visualization right out of the gate from just thinking about it in your head. So yeah, that's all of me today.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline.
Thank you for having me again.
So yeah, if anyone has a question, maybe you guys can post on the YouTube comment. But Caroline, do you have anything to share? Your work or your exhibition or anything, if you want?
Maybe for some Koreans watching, I'm currently working on a introductory TouchDesigner class, online class on this class 101. Find it. Over here. So the class is completely in Korean. So anybody who's interested, just so you know. It's actually gonna launch next month on the 7th. But right now you can buy it at, because it's pre-launch, you can buy it at a reduced price. So if you're interested, make sure to buy it now, because after it's gonna become expensive.
Is that the TouchDesigner beginner workshop in Korean?
Yes.
Oh, looks cool.
Thank you.
How many times you gonna have? It's like
you can buy this class and you can just watch it anytime you want. So it's always gonna be on here. And the curriculum is kind of, where is it? Here. You just watch these videos.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Everything is in Korean. Sorry.
No worry. Cool.
Yeah. There was actually a question in the chat.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something.
How did you get the XYZ position from countries, longitude and longitude? Actually, this took me some time to figure out. Let me show you. Because yeah, what I did is I first downloaded this data with country names and their longitude and longitude. And then I put that together with the artist's name like with the artist's nationality. And then I needed to convert that data, like longitude and longitude data, which was not that easy to figure out. But actually in the TouchDesigner Facebook group, somebody else had asked a question. So let me find it. No. So somebody shared a Python script to, that's not the correct file, I think. Over here. Somebody shared a Python script to change longitude and longitude from longitude to XYZ position. So I just used that same conversion script, and I actually used the replicator. This is probably going to be really slow when I do this. Yeah, so we have a longitude, and then I'm changing this to chop value, and then I'm using math to map this longitude to 180° and 90°, and then I'm using it inside this conversion script, and I'm repeating this whole process. Like I made this inside a master container, and then I repeated this with a why is this not the correct file? Sorry. I think maybe this is the correct file. Yeah. So yeah, basically, again, I used these longitude, and I picked them apart by country, and then have the script that I need to run, and then I'm putting the new XYZ data in a new table, and I'm just merging it again with the name and the name of the country in this case, and the nationality and the num, like the other data, and then like this. So, and then I'm outputting it, and I'm repeating this same process for every row. So I used a replicator to replicate this for all the rows that I have. And then I put I used in the end a merge dat to merge together all of these items like this to create a table, a new table. And then I also used, I just removed this header in between, and then I finally exported this table again. So that's how I changed these longitude and longitude to XYZ position. But you have to be careful with the replicator comp, because by default, this is limited to maximum 100 operators. But if you use a table, it's very easy to get over 100 rows. So you actually would need to change this to change all of the data in this file. So yeah, I used this script. Maybe I can also share this in the files that I shared for this workshop. This conversion script, because I think it's not in there right now, but that's how I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Caroline. That's yeah, great answer, I think. So yeah, I think there is no. Oh, it was really helpful and exciting. Oh yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, do you have anything to share other than the workshop?
I don't think so.
I think so. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, maybe then we can wrap up. Yeah. Thank you so much again, Caroline, for hosting your workshop today. And then yeah, thank you so much everyone for watching our workshop.